The defense of Erik Jones. So, a while back I posted a video about why Petty GMS would be a team to watch this year. In that video, I mentioned that I could make an entire video about how underrated Erik Jones is. Well, someone asked for that video and I felt obliged to make it, so here we go. Erik Jones was the can't-miss prospect coming up through the JGR pipeline in the mid-2010s. He made his first 5 Truck Series starts in 2013 at the age of 17, and in those 5 starts, he never finished worse than 9th, and he won in his 5th start, again, at the age of 17. In 2014, he would run 12 truck races and take home 3 more wins, and have an average finish of 9.2. Then in 2015, at the age of 19, Jones would run full-time in the Truck Series and promptly win the championship. He won 3 races, had an average finish of 6.3, and only finished outside the top 10 3 times. He also ended the season on a streak of 15 consecutive top 10s. At 19 years old, the talent was there. That same season, he also ran 23 races in the Xfinity Series, where he also won 2 races and had an average finish of 9.2. Oh yeah, and he also made 3 Cup Series starts that year, subbing for an injured Kyle Busch for 1 race and for a suspended Matt Kenseth for 2 races. In 2016, he entered the Xfinity Series full-time and was clearly a favorite to win the championship. He wouldn't win the championship in the end, but he would have 4 wins and an average finish of 11.6, earning him a 4th place finish in points. That would be enough to earn him a seat in JGR's satellite team Furniture Row Racing in the Cup Series. In 2017, he would earn 5 top 5s, 14 top 10s, 1 pole award, and have an average finish of 17.1, and win the Rookie of the Year award. He would then move over to the mothership of JGR in the 20 car in 2018, and over the next 3 years in the 20 car, he would have 2 wins, 28 top 5s, 48 top 10s, 2 playoff appearances, and an average finish of 15.4. Plus, there was his win in the 2020 Busch Clash, where he drove a car that looked like nothing more than a pile of parts into victory lane at Daytona. Frankly, those are all really respectable numbers, but it still would not be enough to stop Christopher Bell from taking over the 20 car from him in 2021, relegating Erik Jones to the 43 car at Richard Petty Motorsports, which was a midfield team at best. I would argue that he absolutely outperformed RPM equipment in 2021, scoring 6 top 10s and looking legitimately competitive at times. Okay, there's the history of Erik Jones. If you stuck with me through all that setup work, thank you so much. We're going to get on to some comparisons now, and I'm going to show you why Erik Jones is the most underrated driver in NASCAR. So at this point, Erik Jones has completed 5 full Cup Series seasons, and I want to compare his first 5 years to the first 5 years of other drivers we all know. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect comparison. No 2 drivers have identical careers or identical opportunities. But I've come up with 4 drivers to compare him to that I think are fair comparisons, and will give us a good point of reference. Those 4 drivers are Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, and William Byron. I'll say right off the bat, William Byron is in the middle of his 5th season right now, so I'm going to extrapolate a little for him, but again, none of these are perfect comparisons. I'm simply saying I believe they are fair comparisons. So let's look at everyone's stats for their first 5 seasons in the Cup Series. So the stats that I've chosen to use are wins, top 5s, top 10s, average finish, percentage of races where the driver was running at the finish, and percentage of races where the driver finished on the lead lap. Now, here are William Byron's stats. Now, here are the stats that he's on pace to achieve by the end of this year. And because he's having a real breakout year, I'm going to give him a little bit of a boost and say, here are the stats that I predict he will finish. Now remember, the 5th year of Erik Jones' career was spent in subpar RPM equipment. And even with that, he still stacks up really well against these guys who are considered stars of the sport. Also, if you give Jones just one more year in JGR equipment and assume he had an average year in terms of his performance with JGR, then he would have all of those drivers beaten in terms of top 5s and top 10s, and only be beaten in terms of average finish by Ryan Blaney, and by a razor-thin margin at that. And we have to remember that Ryan Blaney had already run half of a season's worth of races by the time he had his first full-time season, and we're not counting that in here. So Blaney had more experience in his first full-time year than anyone else on the list. So have you ever thought of Erik Jones as being on the same talent level as the likes of Logano, Harvick, Blaney, and Byron? Well, you should, because he is. He doesn't have a whole lot of huge standout moments where he lights the whole world on fire, but he's the model of quiet consistency. He's a humble, blue-collar kind of driver who keeps his head down and doesn't draw too much attention to himself, and just turns in solid, consistent performances. Now, let's look at the fact that he eventually was replaced in the 20 car by Christopher Bell. Was that a move that paid statistical dividends for JGR? If we assume that Jones's performance would have matched his average performance during his 3 years in the 20 car, Jones would actually have a slight statistical advantage over Bell. Granted, not a big enough advantage to be all that significant, but a slight advantage nonetheless. The truth is, I think from JGR's side of things, letting Jones go for Bell was probably the right move at the time. Bell was the new can't-miss Toyota prospect that they couldn't afford to let go. Jones didn't have any significant sponsorship attached to him, and it's not like JGR was going to let Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, or Martin Truex Jr. go. Unfortunately for Jones, he was the odd man out, but letting Jones go will end up being Toyota and JGR's loss, and Petty GMS's gain, and in the long run, probably Erik Jones's gain too. Jones is only 25 years old, and has an extremely humble personality and is not an attention seeker. His career got launched at JGR. The lessons that he learned as the low man on the totem pole at a premier team will prove valuable to him. Now he moves to be the top driver at a small team with less pressure on it, where he can learn how to be the top driver on a team, a lesson that he was probably never going to learn at JGR. With the incoming support from GMS and Focus Factor, the future of the 43 car is looking the best it has in more than 20 years. Jones is the perfect driver for Petty GMS to build around and become a competitive team with. He's got the talent and the personality that really fits well with the organization. Most drivers hit their prime right around the age of 30. Jones is only 25. If he spends the next 4 or 5 years building Petty GMS into a winning organization while learning how to lead a team, then he should be able to parlay that into a ride as a star with a top-tier team just as he's hitting those prime years, especially if he develops a good enough relationship with Focus Factor that they'll be willing to follow him wherever he goes. Unless, of course, he just helps turn Petty GMS into a premier team itself. That isn't extremely likely. They don't have the funding of a Hendrick, Penske, or Gibbs, but you never know what kind of funding and growth could take place, and I think it would be a really good thing for NASCAR if the 43 car was among the top performers again. Like I said in my last video, I think it's a really good thing when teams with great histories are successful in the sport today. So that's my grand thesis on why Erik Jones is the most underrated driver in NASCAR. I hope you enjoyed me geeking out on statistics. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.